Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a look at the Meteor65 HD. As you can see, it looks a lot like the original Meteor65. It's got the same kind of look, same size motors, same 1S BT 2.0 connector, but the HD version records 1080p high definition video to an onboard SD card while you're flying. And that's pretty sweet for something that is as small and as light as this. You can really fit this into some tiny spaces, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. You may have seen my review of the 65X HD. This was the 2S version, and the 1S version is way lighter. It's not just because of the battery. It has a new flight controller that's in here, so I want to show you that as well. As someone who builds and tinkers all the time, the components are actually sometimes more interesting to me than the drone itself, so I'm going to give you the lowdown on that as well. And if you enjoy this sort of thing, please consider hitting that like button and leave a comment, even if you just want to say hi. I know it seems silly, everyone has to ask for that, but it really does help the YouTube algorithm to recommend this content to more people, so I would appreciate that. All right, check this out. These are my kids. They love it when I fly in the house. They kind of go crazy, chasing me around, or I'll chase them. And this time they've got a fly swatter, which is kind of hilarious. If you've never flown any kind of tiny whoop inside the house, you totally should. It's awesome. They're small, they're safe, and they can fit absolutely anywhere. You will never look at your house the same way again. Even the smallest gaps start looking like gates. Weight is, of course, super important to whoops, so let's take a look. Mine is just under 28 grams. This is a pre-production sample. The final one could be slightly different, but that's the general ballpark. And with a 1S battery, I'm getting about 35.5 grams flying weight. So it's still heavy for a 65mm whoop, but it's pretty light considering it's recording HD. If you compare that to the 2S 65X, you can see just how much lighter the 1S is going to be, and that's going to make it easier to control in those really tight spaces, but there are some trade-offs, and I'll get to that a little later in the video. You're probably thinking that the specs on this new drone are very much like the Mobula 6 HD, and you're totally right. It would be very interesting to do a side-by-side comparison of these two, but that's not what I'm doing today. For one thing, I just got the Mobula 6 HD, and so I don't have any experience with it yet. All right, here's a little bit longer clip so we can talk about what we're seeing. And first of all, you've probably already noticed that banding pattern that slides down the screen. It's kind of annoying. I get that anytime I fly inside my house. Something about the lighting that I have in my house, which is LEDs refreshing at 60 hertz. I'm shooting 60 hertz video, and so it gets that banding effect, which is kind of annoying, but I don't see that outside. You can also see that the field of view is super wide. It's almost fisheye, which causes quite a bit of distortion around the edges. You may or may not like that. If you can't tell, I was having a lot of fun flying this around my house, but it was not easy. I was making a lot of mistakes, and I attribute that to two things, other than just me being rusty. Number one is the weight of the drone is significant. It definitely weighs more than my other 1S whoops. I think it'll take me a little bit longer to get used to the throttle management. And the second thing is latency. There is definitely a significant amount of latency on the FPV feed from this camera. I don't know what it is in terms of milliseconds, but it was definitely noticeable to me. It was kind of throwing off my timing. And if you were cruising around slowly outside, I don't think it would matter. But in tight spaces, it definitely is something that you can feel. And so I think it's fair to say that you are giving up quality on the FPV feed in order to get this HD footage. Unfortunately, the battery life is another limitation of this drone. When I fly with one of these batteries inside, I get 220 to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. When I fly it outside, I tend to fly faster outside, and so I get closer to 2 minutes on one of these batteries. And that is not very long, and if you drain one of these batteries in 2 minutes, it's going to get pretty hot. That can't be good for the batteries. The longest flight I ever recorded on this drone was with one of these Tiny Whoop batteries at 2 minutes and 45 seconds. These Tiny Whoop 333s are amazing, and they're sold with the BT 2.0 connector. They've been sold out for a while, but Jesse Perkins said he's trying to get these back in stock. So check on tinywhoop.com, and hopefully you'll be able to find those. All right, here you can see the drone up close. It comes with the Meteor65 frame, 3-blade Gemfan 31mm props, 0802 22,000 kV brushless motors. It's got this injection molded canopy. All of that is just like the Meteor65, but the camera is the Nano HD camera from Betafpv. There's a whole system of menus to control the camera and DVR recording options, but it does not come with a little remote like this. Fortunately, you don't need it. The drone comes set up with Betaflight camera control, so all you have to do is plug in the drone, center both of your sticks, left stick goes all the way to the right, right stick goes all the way up, and that enables the OSD menu. And here on my Power Play screen, you can see what that looks like. Flip through the different video options, camera settings, TV settings is what your FPV looks like, and so forth. Oh, and if you are going to do this, I suggest blowing a fan on the drone because that DVR board will get pretty hot if it sits on the bench like this. If we pop the canopy, you can see the DVR board right there. These screws go all the way down into the frame, so they're pretty long. Once we take those screws out, you can see that the DVR board actually just lifts straight off of the flight controller because it is connected with this group of little header pins right here. That's pretty convenient for maintenance, but of course this could become a problem if they get loose in the future. And here is the new flight controller. This is the part that I was most interested to check out on this drone. As you can see, it really is an all-in-one. It's got the receiver built in and it's got the video transmitter built in. And unlike the Crazy Bee board, this one has a UFL connector here, so you can actually use different antennas if you want to. That's pretty cool. You can also plug and play with a different camera here, so even if you were using this in an analog build, if your camera has the correct connector, then you could assemble that without any soldering. And here's a little feature, but I think it's pretty cool. If I plug in a battery, you can see it's actually got bright LEDs on the bottom. If I turn off one of these lights real quick, you can see it really lights up the table. It's pretty cool. These I've got green and they're pulsing back and forth, but they're actually multicolor LEDs and you can program them in Betaflight to do whatever you want. And so that is pretty cool. I usually don't put programmable LEDs on my whoops because of the weight, but having it built into the flight controller is pretty cool. I took the flight controller all the way out of the drone just so I could give you guys the weight. With the BT 2.0 connector and the included FPV antenna, I'm getting 5.34 grams. Now at the time I'm recording this video, the flight controller hasn't actually been released yet, so I haven't even seen the official product page. There could be some interesting specs that I'm missing. If you look down in the video description below, I'll put a link as soon as it's out. I haven't really pushed the range of this receiver, and I can't do a proper test outside right now because there's smoke pouring into our area from Oregon and Eastern Washington. It's really gross. They're telling everybody to stay inside. But I have flown around the house and around my yard, and for all of those cases, this receiver has worked just fine. But I do have some outdoor footage. This was recorded back when I first got my hands on the drone, but you can see what it looks like outdoors, what the camera looks like in some different light. And then here's what the FPV video looks like in comparison. I'll let this play for just a little bit and then we'll come back to the bench. I want to show you the modification that I would make to this drone to make the performance much, much better. Like I said, this is pretty light for a 65mm HD whoop, but it's still quite a bit of weight to put on these tiny little props. So if you want to improve the performance of this thing in a big way, the thing to do is going to be to put it on a 75mm frame with 40mm props. I suggested that to Betafpv so that they could differentiate this from the Mobula 6 HD, but they decided to go with this one. And it is cute. I understand people want to see the smallest recording device that they can. But if you just swap these parts onto the Beta 75 Pro frame or the Mobula 7 frame and use some 40mm props, it'll be quieter, it'll be more efficient, it'll fly more stable, it'll have more performance, and you'll have an option to carry a larger battery like these 450s if you want to get a little bit more flight time. So that's what I'm going to do with mine as soon as I finish up this video for you guys. So yeah, that's the Meteor65 HD. Hope this information is interesting and helpful for you. If it is, don't forget to leave a like and a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think of this drone or what your favorite way is to record HD footage in those really tight spaces. I'd love to hear about that. And of course, if you're interested in this drone or the new flight controller, I'll leave links down in the video description text as usual. And they are affiliate links. It helps me out a little bit if you choose to use them. If not, no worries. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Beware! The drone spotter is back!